So, hello everybody. Thank you so much for joining in on this discussion on narcissism. So, today we're going to be having a conversation about narcissism. Just to give you a background, I wrote an article about narcissism, basically, and whilst doing the research, it was actually really interesting the things that I found out about narcissism, and I just thought it would be good to try and have a discussion about it and try and get different people's views and perspectives, all of that. So when I was doing the research, there were 9 features of narcissism, and what they said is called narcissistic personality disorder. And what science says is that basically there's these 9 features of narcissism, and if you have 5 out of the 9, like, you have to read the article to understand, but if you have 5 out of the 9 features, then you are likely to be a narcissist or are likely to have narcissistic personality disorder. So also, whilst I was doing the research, I found that research says that AfroGlobal men or Black men are the most narcissistic. So I found that really interesting. I also found interesting that research also says that Black men have the highest levels of self-esteem, which was interesting because a feature of narcissism is that you have really, really low self-esteem. So it's like, how can more Black men be narcissistic and also more Black men have high self-esteem? So I found that really, really interesting. And so, yeah, so I just wanted to discuss what people thought narcissism is, their experiences with narcissism. I did speak with a friend of mine who wanted to join in or join the discussion, but unfortunately he can't. His name is Cliff. He's in Ghana at the moment. He basically was saying his point of view was, one, he said that in the Ghanaian language, there's no such thing as narcissism. So he actually thinks that narcissism is a Western concept. He doesn't think it's actually applicable to Black people or to Africa, so to speak. But he said that it's more applicable now because we're in the West, and he thinks that society has created narcissistic people. Another point that he made was that Black businessmen, actually, no, he didn't say Black businessmen. He said that you have to be narcissistic to be a successful businessman. He said that you have to have confidence, you have to have self-esteem. So he said that he doesn't really believe in narcissism. It's confidence, that you have to have confidence to be successful in business. So that was his point of view. So yes, I want to open the forum just to get an idea of what people think. So who wants to start? So on the call today, obviously there's me, and there's Chantelle, who's our head editor. We also have Tracy, who's part of the team as well. She's head of operations. She's somewhere. And then we have Patrick, who is a very good friend of ours at Your Magazine, and James, and we might have Michael as well. So we may have some other people joining in, but let's start the conversation. So let's go to Patrick. Patrick, what do you think? Yeah.
Hi, how you doing? Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes.
Great. Yeah. How you doing, guys? Thank you for having me on. This is a really really good subject to talk about, and the reason for me why it's a good subject is because the first lockdown, that we went into, I had to deal with actually removing some of my staff or asking a couple of my staff to leave because of the lockdown. And one of them, they left nicely or normally. The other one, was, when I say a nightmare, it was literally a nightmare. And when I was reading the article and I was looking at all the list of stuff that, we were going down, that guy must have had 10 things on that list that it was that and I'm not just saying that. I'm just saying I'm not saying that. I'm just because I don't like him. I'm saying it because it's real. Yeah. He had 10 things on that list that he was going through, you know. But I always knew that his problems, I reckon his problems stemmed back at school, from school, because he went to school in Dagenham. Yeah, he's from Congo. He went to school in Dagenham. It was maybe the only black boy in his school. Well, one of few. He's got very strong features, yeah, and he's very dark skinned. Yeah? So I reckon the reason why he became narcissistic, yeah, is because he might have got bullied at school. He might have got people taking the mickey out of him all the time. So what he did is he built up his confidence, yeah, by making other people look bad, making sure that he knows people that know that he's better than everybody else. Not wanting to lose an argument, never want to lose an argument, even if it was wrong, he will say my ice cube is colder than your ice cube, yeah, and all the rest of the stuff. So, you know, I've been around that. It's not a nice thing to be around. Yeah. It's really not a nice thing to be around, and I think that some people become like that because, especially black people, so-called black people, Nubian people, yeah, or people of color, yeah, especially them, because we have to put up with a lot of stuff going through school. We've got to put up with a lot of stuff in a normal day-to-day basis, work, school, walking on the street. We got to put up a lot of stuff, so we have to build up walls and defense systems. But sometimes we build our walls so high we can't see above it. You know what I mean?
Right.
So that's what I feel about that narcissistic stuff. And I think, yeah, it's a lot of black people have got it because we've been taught to literally have that. Another thing I want to say as well is that the brother in Ghana that says it's a westernized thing, it is a westernized thing because because the Western people, they've got a name for everything. If you run around too much, you've got HDAD. Do you mean? If you do this, you got that. They put a name on. They put a name literally on everything. And what we do is name in, yeah, and then we put it into our body, and it expels around our body, and then we become it. I think that's what it is.
Right, that's interesting. Yeah, okay. So are you saying that he became narcissistic because he had low self-esteem?
Yeah, he became narcissistic because he went, as I said to you, he went to school in Dagenham. Yeah. He came from Congo, so he couldn't speak English properly. So he spoke Congolese, Lingala, and he spoke French. So imagine going to school in Dagenham, and he's like 40. Imagine going to school in Dagenham. Yeah. Like, Dagenham, yeah?
Dagenham in the UK, everybody, if you're from anywhere in the world, yeah.
Predominantly white, middle class, upper class people, yeah? And he's got his dark skin, very strong features. Not the best looking guy, I'm not being bad, yeah? Right? So he had to learn how to tackle bullies. He had to learn how to tackle. He had to be like he calls himself the gunning king because he has to learn how to, like, if you throw something at him, he has to fight back. You know what I'm saying? Right. He had to learn how to. What he did, he learned how to take something that he didn't like on himself, yeah, like his nose, and made you look like, and made you feel like you had an ugly nose to take the picture of his own nose. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Right. Yes.
And with him barbering, like we always have to have arguments with him. Like, I'm the best barber in East London. I'm the best, you know what I mean? And then he'll bring your barber work down. He'll look at you and say, "Oh, you're like in front of your clientele. Oh, the haircut is kind of rubbish." And he always had to bring the attention to himself and make himself look the best. So I'm saying, so it's a sad thing to see. It really is a sad thing to see, especially when you try to help people through it, and they don't think they've got a problem. Yeah, so I'm saying, like, it's like trying to tell a drunk man. It's like trying to tell a drunk man that you're drunk. It's because he's only gonna say, "No, I'm not." You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
You know, it's a really bad, sad thing. You know.
It's really interesting because it does say, obviously, the whole self-esteem thing is quite interesting when it comes to narcissism, because, I mean, I think I know 2 people who are narcissistic. I think I think because I don't know, right? So the 2 people who I think I know who are narcissistic, one of them I do actually believe has very low self-esteem, but the other one, I actually think they actually do think that they are better than everybody else, and they actually believe that they're more intelligent than everybody, and they're special. Like, they actually believe it. So it's kind of interesting. I mean, from the whole clinical perspective of narcissism, narcissistic personality disorder, they say that you have to have they say that you have low self-esteem. So I think what you're saying is that the guy that you had to sack had low self-esteem, and basically his narcissistic personality is like a cover-up of his self-esteem.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. His narcissistic personality will be a cover-up for what he don't like about himself. So whatever he doesn't like about himself, it will throw it at you. So it take all the attention off him. And it's like saying this, yeah, if you call a boy a dog, for the first 3 times, he will get upset with you. Maybe 10 times he'll get upset with you. But if you do it long enough, and you saw the guy and the boy walking in the street, and you said, "Yo, dog," he will turn around and look.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying? Because if you're used to, oh, look at your nose, it's too big. Oh, your lips is too big. Oh, you're so ugly. But the thing is, everything that he didn't like about himself, it will give it to you. And he was also a dream killer. He was also a dream killer. So if a child came into the shop and said, "Yeah, I want to play basketball," he'll say something like, "You can't play basketball because you're too fat." In front of the parents, you know what I mean? And I'm just saying he's too fat. He can't play basketball. Or I'm a rapper. Oh, that music's rubbish, man. Go and work in McDonald's. See what I'm saying? So he will always cut you down. Even to the point at one time he said he reckoned he can beat Mike Tyson in a boxing ring because Mike Tyson's old. But Mike Tyson fought the other day. Did you see him?
No.
Huh?
No, I didn't see Mike. No, I didn't see the fight.
Yeah, Mike Tyson fought. He had a fight with Roy Jones Jr. The other day. Yeah, you look it up on YouTube. But this guy swore down that he said, "I swear down I can beat Mike Tyson in the ring because he's old." That's how narcissistic this guy was.
Yeah. Yeah.
And he will argue his point for 2 hours until you have to walk away.
Yeah.
So I've been around for like 12 years of my life. Because he worked for me for 12 years, and I've been around that for 12 years of my life. And it's a very sad situation to see. It sucks your energy, yeah? And whoever's around it, walk away from it because you can't change that person. You can never change that person.
You can't change a person, yeah. Thank you. Yeah, thanks for that. We'll probably come back to you in a bit. Shall we go to James to see what you think about narcissism?
Yeah, before I go on, I was going to ask Patrick. Thanks for having me here today. Great to be here, guys. Patrick, what is it that you do for work?
So, yeah, I'm a barber. I'm a teacher. I'm an author. I'm a husband. I'm a father. I'm a jeweler. I'm an inspirational speaker. I do a lot of stuff, man. I do a lot of stuff.
He's an entrepreneur.
Yeah, but the thing about it, James, yeah, is that when you're in that situation, when you're in that point in your life, yeah, you have to be humble. The most important thing that you could do when you're in this situation is to be humble. So when they say about businessmen has to be narcissistic, I don't think that's true. Because when I first got my shop has been open for 30 years, cut above the rest in East Ham. And when I first got it, the first thing I said to my wife, if you see any change, just close your fist, yeah, and hit me right down that main vein in my job.
And I believe she will hit you too.
Sorry.
Yeah.
So your barbershop is in East Ham?
Yeah.
Oh, okay. No, I live locally there, Manor Park, so I'll have to come visit. But yeah, it's interesting listening to what you're saying as well, especially about when someone projects onto other people, because we can't give to other people what we don't possess inside, and whatever we're feeling or whatever we have, we give to other people. And you see it all the time. It's like if someone's building a tall, tight skyscraper, and I look at your skyscraper, for example, Patrick, and say, "Wow, yours is bigger. I want to build a bigger one." And then I start to build it and think, "Wow, this is too much hard work. I'm just going to tear yours down to make mine look bigger." And unfortunately, that's how a lot of people operate. And what was interesting, looking at my journey, I worked with a lot of highly successful individuals, very wealthy people. And you've got some people that are very successful, very wealthy. They've got very good relationships. They're humble. And you get others that aren't. And what was interesting is, without mentioning any names, I came across an individual who was headhunted by me. I was headhunted by them, rather. Started work with them, incredibly successful. And there were traits that they were putting on me. And it was like they were putting a lot of pressure on me, number one. And they were trying to break me down and projected things onto me. And because I've been along the journey and I've come across a lot of narcissists in the past, and what I've realized is a lot of the mentors and business partners that I've worked with, they're amazing people. So if we can take judgment out of the equation, and there's no good, bad, there's no right or wrong, no positive or negative, they're just patterns. And even when I do the coaching, it's not about personality traits, it's about the patterns. A lot of the people that I've worked with and that have mentored me have been very arrogant, controlling, manipulative, narcissistic sociopaths with a lot of money. And that's a very dangerous combination. And when you get to that level, it's very, very covert because they're very charismatic, very charming. They don't really put people down. They're very, very highly skilled. They've very come across as very genuine. But if you spend enough time with them, you start to see cracks in the patterns and behavior. And this is very dangerous because on the surface, they look like amazing people. But when you spend time with them, they make you think that you're crazy. And I actually had a bit of a breakdown last week because I was put into this environment, work with this individual. And the mistake that I made was that I made myself vulnerable because this person's in a higher position than me or deemed to be, that I deemed to be more successful. And because of that, I opened myself up to be coachable and teachable. And if we get into a position where we're submissive, then what happens is we have to trust the other person. But if we give people a lot of trust and we're not clear with our boundaries and that person's narcissistic, they can abuse that. And it's not a case of, one of my mentors said to me years ago, he said, James, because I said, are people taking from me? And he said, no, are they taking or are you giving? So it's having clear boundaries. And what happens with narcissists, especially if they're manipulative and very highly skilled and sociopaths, what they'll do is they'll tend to exploit the weaknesses of people around them, whether that's a partner in a relationship or whether it's a staff or a business partner or even if it's an employer. It doesn't matter. These people are very, very persuasive in how they operate. And looking at the patterns that you put there, I think all of us have tendencies of narcissism in us because we all have to have high self-esteem to succeed and self-confidence and self-belief. So there's a lot. Narcissism, I think, is present in all of us as human beings. But the danger comes when we're out of balance and there's no empathy. That's the dangerous. And when people think they're right and they want to prove that, I think the need to be right is very dangerous because people will stop at nothing and they will force to present their agendas onto other people. And that's very dangerous because then what happens is it becomes a conflict of ego. And things that I've learned to help me deal with narcissistic people is just to love them for who they are, but also to have very strong boundaries. And I think that's very, very important because if we don't have strong boundaries, then narcissists will exploit that and they'll take advantage. And what they do is they prey on the weak. And if you show weaknesses, then they will exploit that. So it's important to, first of all, know self and know our worth. And people talk about this all the time, having self-love. But it's about loving self, knowing our own worth and having our own boundaries. And narcissists won't actually deal with people like them because they know they don't have anything to manipulate. So right. It's when people don't have that self-love, they don't have that self-worth, they don't have those boundaries, and they're highly empathetic, which I am, people take advantage of that. So over the years, I had to learn coping mechanisms and systems and strategies to protect myself from people like that.
Yeah, that's very interesting point about them exploiting the weaknesses of others. I do think that's a big on the list. I think there was lacks empathy was a point on the list, that they tend to lack empathy. So yeah. Thank you for your comment, James. I think the discussion will open. I think Patrick wants to say something on that.
Yeah, James, that was brilliant, man. That you hit the nail right on the head. Lack of empathy. The way I'm talking about my guy, because I've seen it, I've been around it. The way he had lack of empathy he was a dream killer. Didn't care. Yeah. And all the people that I was around, all the staff that I had, yeah, he exploited their weaknesses. So what he did, exploited their weaknesses, then he turned them against the main man, which was me. So they could all gang up and bring me down. Yeah. So he exploited, and if they didn't fall in line with what he says and what he does, and with his other little team, he will make sure that they left the shop. And I've had barbers leave my shop because the same guy. So it's very deep what you said, and you've hit the nail right on the head, right on the head. Thank you for that.
My pleasure.
Thank you.
So, Michael, what do you think about narcissism?
Well, I agree to what Patrick and James have said so far in their submissions. What I would say for starters, in Ghana, we don't really use it as a term where we say someone is narcissistic or they have a very superior view of themselves. But even though it's not a very popular term, you can see the traits in manifestation by the way people treat the people around them and whatnot. I think it starts fundamentally from how people are raised. And it could be someone who's raised in an environment where parents overcompensate. And even when they go wrong, they are affirmed and made to feel like they are the best that thing that ever happened. They can grow up to display narcissistic tendencies. And then in the case of the guy Patrick described, where this is somebody who has grown up feeling disadvantaged and always has to fight to prove a point and tends to demonstrate narcissistic tendencies. So both have a way of hurting us in a negative way. I observed one years ago when I listened to an interview, and the example I'm going to cite is in no way tied to any gender, but I saw it play out in a very interesting way, and it was a man and his wife. The first interview had to do with the man's wife, where she had released a hit song in the country. Everybody knew the song, so she was popular. And she was being interviewed to talk about her experiences and what led to the song. And just listening to the way she described her husband, my conclusion was, I think this woman is suffering from deep inferiority complex, or is living with a man who has really beaten her into submission, because everything she was saying was just inflating her husband's influence. And I get it that when people win awards or people do something significant, they give credit to their spouses, but it's usually because their spouses stood with them and helped them. But this was a bit too extreme. And then there was a second part of the interview where the husband of this lady was interviewed. And if I'm to sum up what he said in a sentence, this is what he said to describe the kind of relationship they had. He said, "I'm her God. Without me, she's nothing." And that for me was a very strong indication of a narcissistic view of oneself. And afterwards, this guy went on to do some very horrible things in the country and incidentally drew a lot of followers, and people were not questioning his attitude until last year, where he got into some real trouble and hasn't been able to recover. So there are instances where you see people display it. And I think that the fundamental problem is how someone tends to think of themselves. You have people who think of themselves in a certain way where it makes them feel superior and everybody else is inferior. Yeah. And then you have people who are also feeling inferior inside, but because they want to make a statement, they are forcing themselves to be either something they are not, or to beat everyone else into submission. And those are the extremes that you tend to see in my side of the world. And interestingly, our culture also, in a way, plays into that, because men are sometimes raised or nurtured to think that they are superior to women, which is a very prevalent issue in Africa. So that also has a way of feeding into the narcissistic behavior, and you tend to find it play out more in the men. But you also see a trend where women are also becoming very prominent and powerful and accomplished. And you see that it's almost as if somebody feels marginalized and they have grown into power, and they also want to exert themselves and prove their worth. And sometimes it tends to go overboard. So I see it playing out in that way, but we haven't as a people really sat down to say, this is a trait we are finding, it's destroying our society, and we have to deal with it. And that's the problem that we have. And I think one of the things that broke my heart recently was I was going for a jog and I saw two young guys, they're teenagers, and they were running, and one got tired. And immediately the other guy got tired. The one who was still running turned and said, "Are you a woman? Hurry up and let's run." And I found that very narcissistic, because it's automatically letting you know that if you're a man, you have to behave in a certain way and act in a certain way and project yourself in a certain way. And all these things, people take it into the workplace, and it creates all kinds of problems in the home, in the workplace, and then in our society as a whole. So those are just my opening thoughts for now.
Yeah, that's interesting. I think you made some really, really good points, actually. I do think in Africa there is definitely a cultural element where men are brought up, like what you said, men are brought up to feel that they're above women. Yeah, so I do think you made some really interesting points. Chantelle, did you want to add anything?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's really interesting what all of you have said so far. I can definitely relate to all of your stories, especially with you, Patrick. Just kind of having people, because where I've used to work before, like in retail positions and stuff like that, as a manager, I've had certain situations whereby, because I am, I'm quite a nice person, quite, sort of like try to see obviously the good in everybody. I guess it's like empathetic quality that I have, like what James was talking about. Sometimes people do take your kindness for weakness, definitely. And I've definitely had to sort of try and get a tougher skin over the years. I've had quite a few situations whereby people that I've worked with have been all nice and been really positive, and then you just find out all of a sudden they're like talking to your managers and saying, just slagging you off, basically, that you're not doing this, you're not doing that. And actually that's not the case. It's just they're just trying to bring you down because maybe they are lacking something in themselves. And I think especially with what I found, and I'm sad to say it, but I found that with a lot of sort of other Black women, especially if I've worked with them, apart from obviously with us at your magazine, thank God. But in other places that I've worked, I've had issues where it's almost like a competition. And instead of I find that in certain other cultures that I've worked with, they tend to be sort of more together, like a lot of Asian cultures. I find that they definitely seem to, I don't know, sort of maybe help each other out more when I've worked with them. But in some of the black people that I've worked with, even women, I know we're talking about men, like a lot of Black men that are meant to be more narcissistic, but actually some Black women have been very narcissistic towards me. And yeah, it's like, instead of just embracing that you're from the same kind of background, you'd think that maybe you'd have more in common with these people, but actually a lot of the times I've actually found more issues and more problems with my own Black people, which makes no sense to me. But a lot of the times I have kind of confronted some of the people as I've kind of grew in confidence and just asked, what is the issue? What is the problem? And a lot of the time they'll tell me, oh, there's no problem, there's no issue, there's nothing, it's nothing. It's like it's all in my head, but it's not in my head. But yeah, to be fair, most of the time, you know, I've kind of become quite, I wouldn't say best friends with these people, but I've learned how to tolerate these people, just to make my life easier. And but yeah, so that's kind of my own experiences. But yeah, it's just kind of just knowing your worth and knowing that I'm just competing against myself. I'm not competing with anyone else for any job, any title, whatever I've got is because I've worked hard for that. And I just think, especially with some Black people, instead of just kind of trying to bring each other down, actually we should try and, push each other up. And that's what we should be doing more of. But yeah, so that's just kind of my take on it, really, to be honest. My experiences, really.
Yeah, no, I do think you're right. I think there are a lot of women narcissists out there. Even though the science is saying that it's more Black men who are narcissistic, there are definitely women who are narcissistic. You touched on a point about the cultures that Black people tend to not support each other as much. That's a different conversation. But I wanted to ask James what he thought, because James is Asian, right? And so what Chantelle was saying in terms of the, Black people, what's the Asian community like in terms of narcissism and how they treat each other?
No, it's a great question. I think at the end of the day, we're all tribes, we're tribal creatures, and we're not designed to live in isolation. And let me give you an example. If you look at nature's a good example, right? Now, if you look at the wind flows through the trees. The tree doesn't try to hold onto the branches to the wind, does it?
No.
And if you look at the water when it flows through the ground or in the river, it just flows. The earth doesn't try to hold on to it, does it?
No.
And if you look at the clouds, when they go through the sky doesn't try to hold on to the clouds, does it?
No.
So everything in nature, it's just a natural ecosystem. Everything flows, everything has purpose, everything fits into everything else. But when we're around people, everyone has their agenda, and it's neither good, it's neither bad, but everyone has a purpose. But when these agendas are not clear, and when we're not clear on the intention, then there could be feelings of, well, someone else is taking advantage of us, or someone is abusing us. But a lot of the time, what it comes down to, it's not clear intentions, and it's not clear boundaries of what our expectations are of other people. So I think if you look at different cultures, especially the Asian culture, it's about sometimes there's different expectations, respecting your elders, people expect you to do certain things, and you don't really have that sense of identity or independence, and you've got commitments to family and being part of the community, which is all good, but then it's about how do we fit in, if that makes sense, and what our roles and responsibilities are. And I've just learned through heartbreak, failures, and empty pockets. I was in business many years ago, lost money, found out that I was working with a lot of people that are corrupt, and connected to one individual who I found out later on was very wealthy. I didn't know at the time. First time I met him, he said something that triggered me. I just broke down in front of him. And he said to me, James, you should have been a millionaire 10 years ago. And then curiosity and confusion came to the surface. And I said, okay, then why aren't I? And he said, you've got the wrong people around you. These people are not elevating you. They're utilizing you. They're using you. He said, you've got a big heart. You like helping people, but you're not in a position to help them because you can't help yourself. He said, you give too freely. Familiarity breeds contempt. You give privileges far too soon. You're not good at setting healthy boundaries. You're not good at setting healthy expectations. Other people don't live up to your high standards. When they don't, you get upset. You don't communicate effectively. You explode. He said, your ability to create is extraordinary. I've never seen anything like it before, but your ability to destroy is just as good, if not better. You're too emotional. You're too temperamental. You've got poor judging people. I can't invest in you. You're a liability. And that was quite brutal feedback, but I've been able to turn all those weaknesses into my strength. But it's taken a long time, but it's come back to evaluating self. And a lot of it goes back to childhood, how we were treated by our parents. Like my parents, I love them to bits and they love me, but they done the best they could with what they had. And they didn't have the knowledge, the skills, or the awareness that I have today. And that really affected me growing up. So I grew up with a lack of self-confidence, lack of self-esteem, lack of self-belief. And I look at my journey and I'm grateful because I've learned so much, but I can see why people behave the way that they do and why sometimes we put pressure on people. And especially in a cultural setting, we have certain expectations and we expect people to do certain things. But what happens is we put pressure on that individual and we don't allow them to be who they are. And people don't really know who they are. Because if people...
Sorry, can I start? Are you talking about narcissistic people in relation to this, in terms of people not knowing, like, the relationship between narcissistic people and people who are weak or have low self-esteem?
Well, that's a really good question, because the lines get very blurred. Because if we look at narcissistic people, basically they have no sense of self or identity or who they are and what they are. And because of that low self-esteem, like, I'll give you an example. Very successful person I was headhunted by to work with, and the way he's treated me, it really destroyed me. I was able to rebuild myself. But what I realized through that, I'm very grateful, because what I learned was this person was driven by making money, because that gave him significance and that built up his sense of self, his identity, because he was putting his sense of worth outside himself. And I was doing that to myself a lot of my life, because by me becoming successful, making money, having a business, that would gain love, validation, recognition from family and people around me. But I realized in the process, I was repelling and pushing everyone around me. And I had tendencies of narcissism as well that I weren't aware of. But now it all comes back of having that sense of awareness. And once you have that sense of awareness, you can change it.
It's a really good point. Can I just ask as well, I was thinking about slavery. You mentioned culture, and I was thinking about slavery. I think one of the things that Cliff mentioned was that he said that, you know, Black people have gone through slavery, and the low self-esteem element of that creates narcissism, that generational effect of slavery, that could play a big role in creating more narcissistic Black men. Patrick, what do you think about that?
Yeah, big time. We are going through postnatal slave syndrome. Postnatal slave syndrome.
Postnatal slave syndrome, did you say?
Yeah.
Right.
All the stuff that our forefathers, our ancestors went through, we now carry it in our genes. Yeah? We now carry that in our genes. That's why they say Black men, they can't come to work on time. Black man can't. Black man, we fought like 400 years to chain up our necks. Now we'll kill each other for a chain to put back around our necks. So all this stuff we've been broken down. All this stuff that has been broken down. We now carry it in our genes. So now we have to fight for what we want. We have to make a person look bad or more bad than us. We have to do those things because it's in our genes. For instance, it's like this year. I'll say this year. If a brother saw an Asian man or a white man wearing a Rolex, he wouldn't black up our eyelid. But if a Black man saw another Black man wearing a Rolex, which is cheaper than the Asian man or the white man's Rolex, you shouldn't have that. Why you got that? Why you wearing that watch? Well, I want it.
Yeah.
So it all carries down. It all trickles down from our ancestors, and we have to break the cycle. And I think that when we do break that cycle, there'll be less narcissistic Black men and Black women in the world. But it comes definitely postnatal slave syndrome, definitely 100,000,000%.
Okay. Thanks for that. I think we've got Rachel Yates, who's just joined the call. Rachel, are you there?
Yes, I'm here. I'm here, guys. How's everyone?
We're good, thank you. Thanks for joining us. So, did you hear some of the conversation? Like, what are your views on narcissism?
Unfortunately, I didn't hear everything. I listened Bob's of the conversations. I just came in, so unfortunately I wouldn't like to comment until I hear a bit more, because I like to hear different. I'd like to understand different points of views a lot better.
Well, we're not going to go back. What do you think of narcissism? What are your views of narcissism?
You've put me on the spot, Mrs.
Rockson. No, this is everybody's ideas, isn't it? So we're just actually sharing different perspectives of what people think narcissism is. So what, from your perspective, how do you see narcissism?
I think narcissism seems to be a word that's so freely thrown out there. I think if someone, mainly seems to be a man, this is my point of view, does something in a, let's say something that white men generally do, as how they run their business and how they become successful in who they are. If a black person does exactly the same thing, the word narcissistic is so easily thrown out there.
That's interesting.
And that's my sort of view. I mainly use the word in business because the word narcissism seems to be always thrown out there when it comes to a business person, a business personnel. But as I said, for me personally, I seem to hear the word narcissistic against black men if they're confident, they know what they want, they're strong, they're forceful, they're forward. If it's a white man, you know, he's all hailed and we just sort of allow him to just become this successful being, but narcissistic is not really thrown against them in that way. That's just my personal. I'm not saying a narcissistic, I'm not trying to glory or say they're a positive thing. I'm just saying that every time when a black person does something, we seem to use negative words to define what they do. But if the same thing, if a white person does it, we don't seem to look on it, although it could be negative, we don't seem to give it that negative connotation as much as we do when a black person does it. That's
right. Well, that's actually interesting because research has said that black men are more narcissistic than any other group. So that's really interesting. So
but why wouldn't research say
what was that?
I said research would obviously say that because it's negative.
Why? Why do you think that?
I just think anything black, anything, you know, I think we was briefly speaking about slavery. Sorry, Patrick, I didn't actually get to hear what you said. Sorry, so I don't actually know whether it was sort of what I was saying or not. But I mean, in fact, I was talking to a friend about this earlier today that, you know, black women, we're very strong as a people, you know, we're very strong. And for a black man to be with a black woman, sometimes black women can make black men feel a little inferior, but that's because we're so strong. Okay, and black men have a lot of trouble in let's say, in like attaining as much as their white peers would attain, as in job-wise, job prospects, opportunities, financial opportunities, all of those things. It's, you know, it's a lot harder for a black man simply because he's black. And because of that, they carry a lot of insecurities. And it makes also black women a lot stronger. So I can't remember what the original question was, but I was going to flow to that question. What was the original question?
It was regarding why you think black men are seen to be by research.
Okay, yeah. So when they step into society to tread them down and etc., then we throw that word narcissistic out there.
Right.
That's my
No, that's actually an interesting point. You wasn't here earlier on, but I was saying that Cliff, I think that you know Cliff, he was saying that he doesn't believe in, not believe, but he doesn't think narcissism is relevant to black people. It's not a concept that was actually a black thing. It's just been sort of thrown out there. But yeah, so I think that's actually, your internet connection is unstable. Is that my internet? Okay. Yeah. So, okay. So what about relationships now? So what do people think about being in a relationship with a narcissistic person? Like, do you think that it's actually sustainable? Like, can somebody actually remain in a relationship with a narcissistic person? So who wants to address that question? Patrick.
Yeah, I've been with my wife since I was 13 years old. I'm 51 now. So I don't know about any relationship with other people because I've not been in a relationship with no one else. But I know people have been in a relationship with people. And I'll come back to the same thing again, to the same person that I was talking about earlier.
Mm.
This same person, I've seen him move through relationships, and it never ever works. I think that his first relationship with a woman that he really loved, yeah, I'm not saying no names, so I can say this out, right? The first relationship with a woman he really loved, he had time with this woman, she couldn't stay with him. Yeah? So she must have broke his heart in some sort of way. So every single woman that he got with after that, it was just a dilemma after dilemma after dilemma after dilemma. And I always said to him, look, let me help you out here. Let me tell you, give you some advice. I don't want your advice. I don't care about them. So I don't think you can stay with a narcissistic person for a little while. But I don't think you can stay with them for too long. And if you do stay with them, I think that you become that person. See what I'm saying? You can either make your partner or you can break your partner. And now, the smart person will walk away. But some people, some women or some men are so needy, yeah? They become that person. And they say, I've got a saying, never let a bad person in your house think you can turn him good. It will only turn your house bad. So it's not a thing where you can stay with not that sort of person, yeah, and not become that sort of person. Because that person, narcissistic people, are very strong, driven, very strong mind. They like to play on words, like to play games. And if you think that you can stay with that person, you become that person. Does that make sense?
Yeah, it does. It's it's interesting viewpoint. Is Michael still there?
Huh?
Sorry, what was that, Patrick?
It's a very, very dangerous game to play. And another thing is, women that get abused, physically abused by their husbands, or husbands that get physically abused by their women, yeah, right? That's because them people are narcissists. And the thing is, they abuse you, right, in a way where you get used to being abused. You can't get into another relationship without getting slapped. You can't. Because if you get into another relationship and the man or the woman don't slap you, you think there's something wrong with that relationship.
Yeah.
You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
It makes sense?
Yeah, no, it does. It does.
Yeah.
So, Michael, do you have anything to add to that?
Yes, I think relationships that are between a person who is narcissistic and one who isn't can be very challenging, especially if you find that the other person is a very needy type and they are looking for someone to affirm them, someone to either shower them with gifts or to do something to make them feel special. Then you can find that the narcissistic person can make the person do things that are below their dignity or will even go a long way to make them feel more worthless than they already feel. Even though they may be beautiful or they may be handsome, it's not a very good situation. I have witnessed a relationship with people who are dating someone who has a very inflated ego or a very exaggerated view of who they are.
Sorry. Rachel, can you turn your mic off, please?
Yeah.
Thank you. Thanks. Yeah. Sorry, continue.
I've had the opportunity to witness people going out or dating someone who is narcissistic, and it tends to be very manipulative. Hello?
Yeah, we're still here. I think the camera's not on you. Chantelle, is there a reason why the camera's not on Michael?
Sorry, you're saying the camera is on Michael. I think your camera's just frozen for a second.
Right.
It's just the technology.
Yeah. Right.
I can see it. Everyone else, I mean, I can see Michael, but he's just frozen,
he's frozen
on the
right,
screen
okay.
at the moment.
Is he still there?
It's probably just a connection.
Can we still hear him though?
Hi, Michael. Yeah, I think it's maybe the internet connection.
He's in Ghana, so
he's in Ghana, isn't it? Yeah.
So Chantelle, do you have any views about being in a relationship with a narcissistic person?
I mean, I've been lucky enough. I've only been with one person, and yeah, he's not a narcissist, thank God. You know, we're engaged now, so.
Well,
but yeah, I'm.
Sorry, go on.
No. But yeah, I've had friends that have definitely been in relationships with guys who are very controlling. You know, they kind of seem like they are, I don't know, confident, but clearly, I don't know, I guess maybe their own weaknesses or their own issues, they're putting it on their wives. You know, maybe they don't want them to kind of have their own lives, you know, they have to kind of ask permission from, you know, from their partner before they can do certain things, even just basic things like see your friends. I mean, obviously these days we can't see anybody, it's COVID, just like this. But yeah, that's what I've noticed with my friends, definitely. Yeah.
I think Patrick,
I think is
something. Yeah.
Listen. My wife is narcissist.
Excuse me? Pardon?
Oh.
Listen, only
no.
when she was my wife is narcissist. Only when she was the kitchen cleaned a certain way. All right? I don't mind that. Yeah? I don't mind that. But any woman, yeah, or any man, yeah, that will put up with their woman or their man, ask them, where are you? Let me see. Put the camera on. If I'm saying to you, anyone that puts up with that, yeah, they put up with that, then, you know, they deserve what they need to get. Because it's either you walk away from that relationship or you stay in that relationship. If you stay in that relationship, your life is done, yeah? If you walk away from that relationship, you can make your life better. That's what I'm saying. So, but the thing is with narcissistic people, again, as I said, they will control their partners because they're very, very good at manipulation. It's like, I think there's a textbook on it.
Yeah.
I think there's literally a textbook on how to be a narcissist.
On how to be a narcissist? Yeah,
I think there's a textbook on it. Because they're so good at what they do, literally. Yeah. Right. Now let me go in as far as this, yeah. When I actually told my barber to sling his hook, yeah, I did it by email. Now the reason why I did it by email, text, and WhatsApp, yeah, is because I knew that if I spoke to him face to face, yeah, he would have the ability to change my mind. As strong as I'm a strong brother, but if I talked to him face to face, he would have the ability to change my mind. And the more I didn't speak to him, I said, listen, if you want to speak to me, speak to my email. The more I didn't speak to him on the phone or meeting with him, the more angry the guy got. He got so angry that he literally took out the bounce back loan, opened a barbershop just down the road from me. Yeah, just down the road from me. And he put every single thing in that barbershop to make it better. Because it had to be better than my barbershop. He got so angry that he made an old video of me. He went to YouTube, took parts of YouTube of me, and he made an old video, and he texted to every single one of my clients, all his friends.
Wow.
Now that is what you call a nasty narcissist.
Well, that brings me to another question, actually. Obviously, we know that narcissistic personality disorder is actually a clinical condition. It's actually a mental health condition, which means that basically, is it their fault that they're narcissistic? Like, should we have sympathy towards them? You know, because it's a mental health disorder.
It is.
I understand. Sorry, Patrick. No, you.
Yeah, it is a mental health disorder. Yeah, but you know what you're doing. You understand what I'm saying? You do know what you're doing. You just don't want to take the blame for what you're doing. You just don't.
No, but you see, that's the interesting thing. Like when you look at other mental health conditions, you would say it's not their fault, right? So why is it now you're saying they know what they're doing when it's actually a mental health condition? I mentioned earlier on that I think I know two narcissists. One of the narcissists I know, I actually think they have very, very low self-esteem. The other one, I actually do think that they believe that they are superior to everybody else. They believe it. I don't actually think that it's something that they know that they're doing. They just think I'm better than everybody. I'm more intelligent, and they believe in their own superiority. So it's something that they can't help.
No, I can't see it like that. I can't see it like that. It's not their, I mean, they're narcissists, yeah, but it's not literally their fault, yeah, but it is their fault kind of thing. It's like you because if it was such a major problem that it can't change, what if you go and see a counsellor? What if you go and see a counsellor regularly to try and but they don't want to change. They just don't.
But that begs the question: can they change? Can narcissistic people change?
I think they can. I think they can. I don't think they're far that far gone. It depends on the age as well. How long they've been doing it for. But I don't think that is something that they have to pop pills. They have to pop pills, or they wake up one day they don't know where they are, or they have to get sectioned. They don't have to go through all that sort of stuff. They just live there every day, like bullying other people.
Yeah, but can I come in there?
Yeah, of course.
I think, I mean, with everyone's personality, how I am, how you are, how all of us are, it stems from somewhere. You know, it stems from somewhere. So it stems from maybe their childhood, from an experience, their upbringing, blah, blah, blah. It stems from somewhere. So I think it's easier said than done that someone can just change the way that they are, because I'm sure I'm sure all of us want to be something in particular. If not, I speak for myself. I'd like to be something perfect, of what I think I want to be, and I still struggle to get there. No matter how hard I try, or I mentally say to myself, this is what I want to do, this is what I want to do, blah, 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 blah. It's still hard to get there. So I think it's easier. Sorry, guys. It's easier said than done. I think, you know, someone's personality is just the way that they are, and you sort of either learn to manage them, to learn to live with them, you learn to walk aside with them, or either you don't. But whoever you are, you know, that is who you are. That's my, take on everybody. You know, if I can deal with you, if I can talk to you, if I can be around you, then I will. But if I can't, I won't be around you and then expect you to be any different, because you are who you are, and it stems from somewhere, and it's going to be very difficult to change unless every day you're mentally focused. Okay, I'm going to dress this differently, but there comes to a point where you're just going to be you, and you're going to forget, and you go back into whoever you are again.
So do you think we should have sympathy for them, for narcissists? Do you think that they deserve
I don't think it's a question of sympathy. I just question, if you can't deal with somebody, then don't be around them. But that somebody shouldn't change, because they are whoever they are, and they are like that from somewhere. If you sit down with that narcissist, and they might tell you their story of being abused by their parents, of being neglected, of being whatever. I mean, we don't know. Everyone has a story of why they are how they are. We don't sort of just come out the womb and become these great, fantastic people. Our parents have shaped us. They've told us to say thank you. They've told us to brush our teeth. I mean, if your mum, I had a friend who, she was never, ever taught how to bathe. This is a true story. She was never taught how to bathe. She was always sent into the bathroom, but never taught how to bathe. So she just never knew. So 30 years later, she smelt, and she kept going to the doctors, and they couldn't do anything. So one day we were just talking as girls do. I was in the bathroom, and I saw her actually run the bath, get in the bath with all these smelling salts, perfumes, and just get out. And I thought to myself, what? So you've been doing this for 30 years? So this is what she's been taught. So, she can't, and now now she babes, the smell is just ingrained in her because she is who she is. So unless she consciously does something consciously, then how she is now how she is. And it's either me to accept I've got a smelly friend or not. And that's it. But this is who she is. You know, I can't now, sit there and blah, blah, blah. This is who she is as a person. So I just think we need to also learn to just accept people. If you can't accept them, then don't be around them. Because none of us are perfect at anything. True. Sorry, Patrick wants to say something again. Yeah.
Yeah, Rachel, you're right. You're totally right. You know, you can't change them. They've changed themselves. Yeah. If you can be around them, be around them. And if you can't be around them, move away from them. And I said before you came on, that this guy went to school in Dagenham. I don't know where Dagenham is, but he went to school in Dagenham, and he was only one of many black boys in his school. He grew up with a racist when he's 40, so you imagine how racist it was. He's a dark-skinned Congolese, a lot really big features guy. Not that he's enough. There's nothing wrong with being that way, but so you can imagine what the white children did. They bullied him. And he had to build up a thick shell, thick shells. That's where he got that from. You see what I'm saying? But me, I do feel sorry for them people. I do pity them because I see the pain in their heart. I see the pain in their eyes. But when you stretch your hands out to try and help them, if you try to give a hungry man food and runs away, then what do you do? Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, but Patrick, that's the thing. You can't, and that is the very conversation. You actually can't, and that's in that you can't. You know, I know a gentleman, he hates black women. He hates black women. When I say this guy hates black women, and one day he was telling me that he was in the courtroom. So he's a barrister. So he was in the courtroom, and it was a black lady who had an Asian husband, Chinese husband, ex-husband, whatever. And she was winning the case or whatever she was doing. And he shouted across the room, "This is not a zoo." And he was so happy. We were inside the pub, like as he was telling me the story. And he was so happy, like, and there's a white guy sitting next to me, and the white guy looks a bit uncomfortable because he was like, really like, you know, black women and this and that. But he's like, "Oh, you're all right though, Rachel, you're all right." Listen, proper black guys, you say dark skin, whatever. "Oh, you're all right, Rachel. These women, he can't stand black women." And then when I got to talk to him more, I got to hear his story. His mother used to beat him up, like really beat him as a boy. And his mother has never spoken to him. There's 5 siblings. The mother only put him in adoption, but looked after all of the other 4 siblings. And he's always trying to get his mother's love. And up till now, he's like 50 odd now. He had cancer in his eye, and he phoned Nigeria to tell his mum. And his mum says, "So what do you want me to do?" So he hates his mum, innit? But he's put this on every black woman. And he said his last woman that he had, he was with her because she was so insecure. It was a black lady. He was only with her because she was so insecure. He could treat her like shit. And those were the words that came out of his mouth. And that's why he was with her. Wow. He's got a story to tell us.
Yeah, it sounds like every narcissist has a story. I want to round up the discussion because we did say it was going to be under an hour. We've just gone over an hour. But does anyone have any sort of burning last points that they want to add before we conclude? James, do you want to add anything? No? Michael? Chantelle? No one wants to add anything. Oh, Patrick. Yeah.
All I can say to all the men out there and all the women out there is learn to love yourself, learn to know yourself, learn to embrace yourself. Yeah, and everyone's going to be loved. So if you're in a relationship you've been abused, if you're in a relationship that you don't think your partner loves you, or if you're in a relationship that you think that your partner's playing away, get out of the relationship. Just move on and live your life somewhere else, because that bad person will turn you back. Okay, and that's what I could say. I know a few women that's been in that sort of relationship, and not just women's in it, men are in it as well. So let's not put gender into this. Yeah, And that's all I've got to really say. Love yourself, love the world, love each other. Ashe.
Thank you, Patrick, and thank you all for joining this discussion. Obviously, we haven't been able to conclude because this is such a big sort of topic. It's like it's hard to almost conclude on it. So yeah, I think what we've all agreed is that everybody has a background. Everybody has factors that make them who they are, and you know that is no different for narcissistic people. And in terms of being in a relationship of any kind with a narcissistic person, be it romantic or otherwise, it's going to be very, very, very challenging. But I guess it's for whoever's in that relationship to decide if they want to continue to be in it or not. Yeah, thank you all for joining the discussion. I'm not sure what we've concluded in terms of what narcissism is, what it's not, whether the research was right. But I think we've managed to shed some light on the topic. So thank you so much, guys, and hopefully we'll be having more discussions like this in the future.
Yes, thank you. Thank you very much.
Meeting everyone.
Okay, thank you. Take care.
Ashe.